I will begin by a quotation from a book written by G.H. Langley. Sir G.H. Langley, really speaking, he was Vice Chancellor of Dhaka University and he retired to England and he was asked by the Royal India, Pakistan and Ceylon Society to write a book on Sherindow's philosophy. And Royal India Pakistan Society published that book under the heading Sherwindo, Indian poet, philosopher, and mystic. In that book, written by G.H. Langley, he writes Sherwindo is both a poet and a speculative thinker. The same is true of Rabindranath Tagore. But the thought of Sherwindo appears to me more comprehensive and systematic than that of Tagore. I give this comparison just to show that students of thought, people who judge philosophy, will have, without becoming devotees or disciples of Sri Aurobindo, have given him a sort of a place in their arrangement of philosophical contribution, which I think the ordinary man should notice. You see, that it is by somebody who didn't belong to Sri Aurobindo's group of disciples or devotees. You see, while here is somebody else also, one whom you know very well, I think, at Stanford University, Frederick Spiegelberg. He wrote also in his book, I have never known a philosopher so all embracing in his metaphysical structure as Sri Aurobindo. None before him had the same vision. I can foresee the day when the teachings, which are already making headway, of the greatest spiritual voice of India, Sri Aurobindo, will be known all over America and be a vast power of illumination. So here you see another outsider who is not a disciple or devotee paying a tribute and trying to enter into the spirit of Sri Aurobindo's writings. Well, this gives us some good start to say that it is not all one-sided view that we are trying to take up and advocate. Well, here, therefore, I spoke yesterday, or even in one of my previous lectures, I spoke of Sri Aurobindo's contribution as the dawn of a new age. And today I would like to begin by giving some historical background also. In the last decade of the last century, there was a profound stirring of the spirit of India, as we call it, the Bharat Shakti. It was the beginning of the movement of Indian independence. It might be difficult for a reader of Life Divine, the great philosophical work, today to imagine that its author was one of the very few nationalist leaders in those stormy days of Indian politics. This is difficult for a man to understand. When he takes up Life Divine, he thinks he must have been a philosopher sitting in his cabin thinking of the world's problem. He doesn't know that he was a very great dynamic leader of all India stature. It was during his detention in an under trial as an under trial political revolutionary in 1908 that he got the second crucial experience of yoga that became the turning point of his life. In a certain sense, it was an epoch making experience. And he gave expression to this experience at a meeting in Uttar Para in 1909. This spiritual experience in jail turned his mind to a problem of far greater magnitude than winning the freedom of the country. Subsequently, though invited several times to lead the political movement, he politely declined. The honor because of his single-minded devotion to the pursuit of spiritual problem of man. Now, I give this historical background in order to bring to our mind the facts that Life Divine is not an armchair philosophy. It's not a mere academic product. It is the result of an earnest and single-minded search for truth extending over 40 long years by one of the most foremost intellectuals of our time. It is important to note that the author not merely thought but lived the vision of the reality, and it is the solid work done for many years that has enabled him to make a lasting contribution to thought and life of humanity. It is necessary that the present generation should be made aware of so varied and valuable contribution because that would enable it to solve the problems of today and of the future. The life divine ushers in the dawn of a new age. We are told by many leaders of thought today that we are living in an atomic age, in the space age, age of cosmonauts, the age of technical advance. And it seems at first sight natural that it should be so named because of the vast economic changes which it has brought about and is even now bringing about in the individual and collective life of man. Now, this scientific outlook has given a new concept of collective life by showing the possibility of ameliorating the material condition of the masses all over the world. Man has established himself as the undisputed king among creatures of earth. And he is expanding his physical consciousness to outer space. He is claiming outer space as his domain. Mind has succeeded in mastering material energy by the knowledge of its processes. Even with regard to mind's control over material energy, long ago, Sri Aurobindo laid down a fundamental principle indicating the nature of the new age of conquest, even of matter. Conquest not dependent always on gross physical means and processes, but the conquest of the spirit matter by spirit. We shall come to it sometime after. Now, the control that man has attained over nature at present is the control of mind and of life force, which are themselves not final realities but instruments of the spirit. He writes in the Life Divine, there is always a limit and an encumbrance. The limit of the material field in knowledge and encumbrance of the material machinery in power. But here also the latest scientific trend is highly significant of a freer future. As the outposts of scientific knowledge come more and more to be set on the borders that divide the material from the immaterial, so also the highest achievements of practical science are those which tend to simplify and to reduce to the vanishing point the machinery by which the greatest effects are produced. Wireless telegraphy is nature's exterior sign and pretext for a new orientation. The sensible physical means for the intermediate transmission of the physical force is removed. It is only preserved at the points of impulsion and the point of reception. Eventually, even these must disappear. For when the laws and forces of the supraphysical are studied with right starting point, the means will infallibly be found for mind directly to seize on physical energy and speed it accurately upon its errand. There, once you bring yourself to recognize it, lie the gates that open upon the enormous vistas of the future. This is a quotation from Life Divine. Shows how he looks upon the still greater progress of man's conquest over matter, not merely by mind, but directly by the action of the spirit. But man, the mental being, in spite of his scientific advance, is still a slave of his own nature. Man is subject to his blind desires, impulses, passions, ambitions, greed, ego. In short, he is slave of ignorance. The advance in technique has given rise to a tendency to increase his needs and to raise the standard of life, as it is called, to multiply the gadgets for his comfort. And it is slowly changing the values of life by promoting the false notion that the physical is the only real. Now, the exclusive concentration on mere material advance is not enough to create a perfect individual or a perfect society. Even in science, in societies that have achieved a very high degree of material advance, there are already signs of satiety and psychological malaise which manifest itself in increasing nervous disorders. We may ask ourselves whether this scientific advance with its utility to life and mastery of sense data is leading man towards the truth. It is true that science gives efficiency, which is very essential, but efficiency alone is not and cannot be the goal of life. To a strictly scientific and rationalistic view or outlook, truth is unknowable. What today is urgently needed is not only mastery over nature, but also self mastery. The application of scientific advance to collective life has put into man's hands such a tremendous reservoir of material power that without a corresponding inner transformation of his nature, man would not be able to make a real advance in his culture. It means the material advance by itself would not solve man's problems, though the possibility of its misuse has instilled fear in man's mind, and fear makes man halt and think. But that fear would not deter him, but only bring about the necessary inner change. Would only deter him, but not bring about the necessary inner change. Billy Graham in The Life, August 15, 1960, writes, American genius has enabled us to change virtually everything but ourselves. It is absolutely impossible to change society and reverse the moral trend unless we ourselves are changed from inside out. This feeling and this perception is fairly widespread among the intelligentsia everywhere. And I believe that it is symptomatic of the new psychological change that is trying to establish itself in mankind. The material advance itself, man's mastery over unlimited material energy, simultaneously man's feeling of a need for changing his own nature. These are signs of the descent of the supramental on in Earth's evolution. Sri Aurobindo advocates the control of matter by the spirit. But in order to be able to do that, man must rise above his present state of consciousness. He must rise from his mental consciousness to the truth consciousness, to the supermind. Well, when I was lecturing at Cambridge at Friends Hall in 1955 November, well, I said to the Cambridge people, the audience, yours is an old seat of learning, this Cambridge, and it has distinction of giving to the world great discoverers like Newton and Faraday and others. I have come to tell you that here in this King's College, there was another distinguished discoverer, Sri Aurobindo from India, who laid bare the supramental level of consciousness, opening thereby an immense realm of spiritual experience to man. In the words of Dr. Gokak, his work opens up new horizons that spell new cultures upon earth. It's not merely one culture, new type of cultures. And so the life divine meets the challenge of the agnostic and materialistic outlook now trying to dominate the world. But in a more profound view, it satisfies the deepest need of man, his aspiration for an integral perfection. While it thus satisfies the spiritual need of mankind, it is an equally characteristic contribution of India to the human culture of the future. For without those fundamental spiritual elements, no human culture could be perfect. Sri Aurobindo's works may be said to be the international form of Indian culture. My friend Dr. Chandrasekharan, an Andhra poet, says that no other philosophy or religion gives to life on earth such a high significance as the works of Sri Aurobindo. Well, there are people who today are hopeful about solving the problem of man's complex problems today. They're confident of solving them by other than spiritual methods. You see, there are other factors also that have intervened, and some of them advocate resorting to social or political action for solving man's problem. There has been, first of all, there are three psychological factors that have emerged. One, an internationalism all over the world, tendency to make the world one, an internationalism, not insistence on exclusive national egoism or national consciousness, but a tendency to create internationalism, a consciousness of the whole of humanity, a universal demand for a kind of socialism. Everywhere, in every nation, even which is very strongly individualistic and democratic in its outlook, the pressure has been to demand a kind of socialism, kind of justice for all, opportunity for all, and something that you do must be meant for as many as possible. That is one. And increasing prominence given to ethical values in international politics. Gradually, the balance of power is shifting from economy and military force to ethical forces in international life. There was a time when nations, when they wanted to decide the questions or the problems which came before them, they resorted either to economic pressure or political power, or military force. You see, well, combination of military forces and so on. Now, after the two world wars, the balance is now shifting slowly, not very quickly, but slowly, to ethical forces. In international life now, well, ethical element, whether what you do is right or not, is good or not, but is regarded as an important factor in deciding the policy of nations. Now, this coming out of prominence into prominence of ethical values in international life is also a third important element. Now, the question is whether these new values, with the scientific advance, would they be able to solve man's problems? This is a question. There is a great confusion also with regard to the nature of the problem itself, in fact. It is supposed by some that a plan or a program carried out by social, political, or other outer means would perhaps solve man's problem. About that, Sri Aurobindo says that the advocates of action think that by human intellect and human energy, making an always new rush, everything can be put right. The present state of the world, after the development of intellect and a stupendous output of energy for which there is no historical parallel, is a signal proof of the emptiness of the illusion under which they labor. Yoga takes the stand that it is only by a change of consciousness that the true basis of life can be discovered. From within outwards is indeed the rule. This he wrote on yoga. You see, the Tom 1. Some others think that a certain thought, some ism, propagated by sincere person, through agency of speech and travel and radio and press and books and television and padayatras, as they call it, walking on foot, would bring about the necessary inner and outer change. It is true that thought, idea, or an ideal, or some program of social or economic change, these are great powers for effecting a change in life. But the most important thing, very often forgotten, is that there is no outer problem. The problem is not outer, the problem is inner. The problem is man and his ignorance. Well, the next question then is it possible to attain perfection with the faculties which man possesses at present? Sri Aurobindo shows that man must ascend to the supermind, to the truth consciousness, if he is to attain perfection. General tendency when such questions come up is to regard them as fundamental and insoluble. And if solutions are offered, well, they say this is a good solution, but it is utopian, impossible. It is a chimera, it can't be carried out in life. This wrong attitude prevents a proper approach and retard the solution of important problems. An illustration can make the point clear. If Mahatma Gandhi had consulted the statesmen and political leaders of his time to advise him about his contemplated resort to satyagraha, non-violence, to secure independence for India, what do you think would have been the reaction? With one voice, they would have declared him crazy and advised him against any such utopian method that would surely invite failure, if not political disaster. Well, granting that India does not owe its freedom entirely to Satyagraha, still, it is clear that Gandhi did the right thing in trying his novel experiment for which he consulted only his own conscience. The world has now a new weapon for setting right some of the political wrongs. What is or what seems impossible at one time becomes possible after some time. So the science of medicine, physics, etc., have achieved many things that were at one time considered impossible. And Sri Aurobindo writes in his epic Savitri, the high gods look on man and watch and choose today's impossible for the future's base. So fundamentally there is nothing that should be considered impossible. The program that he lays down for man in books like Life Divine. Well, now we take up the chapter where we left it. It is I think the third chapter, isn't it? Yes. And there are some points in it which will come up gradually when we deal with the subject matter. The problem is whether it can be said in general first that consciousness is the fundamental fact of the universe. And this consciousness is cosmic. Individual is only a term or a particular application of this cosmic consciousness. Consciousness is the fundamental fact of the cosmos, and cosmic consciousness of it, the individual is only one particular application, is secondary and working out of it. Now, whether this cosmic consciousness is the highest, this is a problem. This is one question. And in this chapter which we are trying to read or deal with, we'll see that cosmic consciousness is not the whole of the reality that is at work. There is something beyond the cosmic consciousness. There is a transcendent, if you like to call it, or supra-cosmic reality. Not only ego is transcended, but also the cosmos is transcended. The cosmic consciousness is far wider than the ego, and the transcendent consciousness is far wider than the cosmic. Now, and therefore this conception or the experience of the transcendent reality, which exceeds the cosmos, which is far superior to the universe, makes a great appeal to man when he awakens to it in his spiritual life. See? When man first begins to search for the reality and comes to the cosmos or cosmic consciousness, and then sees a reality or feels a reality or experiences a reality beyond, then he is overcome by the vastness of the experience, by the colossal nature of it, and he thinks this is the only reality. And then cosmos, life, universe, nature is unreal, illusion, non-existent, or not so important. Well, that becomes a natural attitude of the man who first feels consciousness as the fundamental fact, cosmic consciousness as the most fundamental reality. And if he feels a reality beyond the cosmos, he feels, well, that is a real reality and this is, well, an illusion. The sannyasin, the ascetic, gets enamored of this, of the beyond. And therefore, from his point of view, he is justified in thinking that the pure spirit is the only reality. It is free from birth and from change and from death. And the materialist, as we talked yesterday, looks upon matter as the only reality. Both positions equally supported by logic, by reason. The denial of the materialist and the denial of the ascetic. You see, uh, matter is supported by the evidence of the senses, and therefore we think, oh, we are at a dead end here. That is not quite true. Even matter has its own occultism. Matter has, existences which our senses are not capable of knowing. Physical realities which are really suprasensible, which are beyond the range of our senses. Senses themselves are supraphysical. Senses themselves can know matter without gross, well, organs, telepathy, supraphysical knowledge. All that is bearing evidence to what might be called the occult in the material level of consciousness, on the plane of matter itself. Though the knowledge of this occult world at present is imperfect because of defective methods, and it requires to be checked, it requires to be controlled, scrutinized, and so on, but that matter has subtler states which our senses don't perceive as a truth. Just as beyond the cosmos, the ascetic feels the transcendent, below matter or behind matter, the scientist or the materialist does know that there is an occult which he doesn't know. You see? So that both ways there is a sort of a transcendence. You see, transcendence beyond the perception of the cosmic spirit, and a transcendence of the limitations of matter because they are overcome by, or they are removed by the occult phenomenon which occur on the plane of matter. Therefore, in both senses, the worlds beyond already exist, beyond matter and beyond cosmos. You see, and then you can ask this question. But before that, I think we can dispose of this problem of occultism because that is germane to our talk. Occultism is seen by normally in our life. If we pursue the occult phenomenon, we find that occultism is known as in the realm of spirit communication, in telepathy, in hypnotism, in faith cure, and in thought transference, and so on. And you can say that the methods are not always reliable and refined and effective, but and conclusions required to be checked and controlled and disciplined and so on. But that they occur and they are valid, I think nobody can doubt because it's not. He puts it down in one place in one of his books. I mean, Sri Aurobindo, that the occult, it is in life divine itself. The occult is a part of existence. Occult is a part of our existence. Science itself is in its own way an occultism. For it brings to light the formulas which nature has hidden, and it uses the knowledge to set free operations of her energies which she has not included in her ordinary operations, and to organize and place at the service of man her occult powers processes, which is physical magic, in fact. You see? So that occultism is not merely a spiritual in its, even the physical part of it is occult. The question arises now, is cosmic existence then real? Transcendent beyond is the ultimate reality. Matter and below matter, below the transcendence of matter, there is some unknown X at work. In between, you feel the cosmic consciousness. Now, is this real? Because the ascetic refuses to believe this as real. So there is a logic and intellectual process to be is formulated by the ascetic to show that the cosmic consciousness is not real. Is the cosmic consciousness real? And then, if that is also a question, second question is, what is the value of human life? If cosmic life is not real, then what would be the value of human life? Means to say, is it that the human life, the individual is there for a short time and he must snatch, from his transient existence, which he can or which he may, uh, utilize for the time being in enjoying the life as it is presented to him, or what he might do with it is to submit himself to a dispassionate, objectless service of the race, knowing full well that all this is transient fiction. And this is, I think, the attitude which some of the modern schools of thought are advocating, in fact. That, yes, you devote yourself to dispassionate, objectless service of the race, knowing full well that all that is transience. In fact, in one sense, the attitude which some of the Zen schools today are adopting is something like that. The Zen Buddhism, in its origin, I know it is quite different in its origin, but in its interpretation today, what I find is that, well, it is a flow, it's a flux, an eternal flow in eternal time. Therefore, there is no sense in saying we have arrived at anything. You can never arrive at anything. It is a movement, and you are in the movement. You are on the flux, on the crest of a wave, and that wave is moving and passing away. That's all that is happening. You realize that, and in that movement, you either enjoy yourself if you like. You see, snatch as much of joy as possible, or make the most of life that is given to you. Or if you have got some awakened ethical conscience, then you devote yourself to a dispassionate, objectless service of mankind, knowing full well that all that means nothing. You see, that's it. Well, so then what is the human life? Only a nervous spasm of matter? This is how he puts it in Life Divine. Is it a nervous spasm in matter? It means you advocate a material mayava. Yes, that all is nothing, you see. Because well, the world is and is not. Matter is and matter is not. It is because, well, it is present and compels. It is not because it is only phenomenal and transitory. It is going to pass. So, and second difficulty in solving this problem of whether cosmic consciousness is real or not is that normally man has no experience of cosmic mind. He has no experience of supermind. So how is it to decide whether cosmic consciousness is real or not? Well, the remedy to solve this problem, Sri Aurobindo suggests here is that we must try to extend the field of our own consciousness and get into the experience of cosmic consciousness. And this can be done not by simply wanting it. The human individual have to increase the instrumental capacities of his nature. He is given certain instruments, eyes, nose, ear, and so on. Then mind, thought, vital power, emotional being, intellectuality, reasoning power, concentration, understanding, comprehension, you see, willpower, and all that. A complex instrumentation is given to him. He must increase the capacities of the instrument. Then the individual will be able to expand into the cosmic consciousness. And when he expands, he will find that not of the individual, but of the whole cosmic movement, there is a witness self. One who sees, observes, comprehends all that is happening. Well, this witness that first start as mere witness is really the Lord that first makes himself felt to the human consciousness. When from the ego expands into the cosmic consciousness, he first realizes a witness self, a self that watches not merely the individual nature, but the whole cosmic movement. That is, then you say that modern psychologists also admit cosmic consciousness. But psychology of the East knew this as a reality because they knew that matter is only one working out of that cosmic energy which is at work. One power of cosmic consciousness is matter. Another is light. Third is mind. The same existence. And you will say, but when man has expanded into the cosmic consciousness, realize the witness self, what is the a test that he has actually had it? Yes, the test is that he will be able to live in other consciousness, to be able to identify with, well, the content of what today is other consciousness. He began with an individuality, an acts. Well, he expands out into cosmic consciousness. When he takes up his individual station again, he is able to identify himself with the content of consciousness of what to him as an individual are others. He is able to know, the content of consciousness which is not his individual self. Well, that is one test. He says that when we live in it, we live also in other minds, in other lives, and we can produce effect on others and produce effect on the physical world. You see? And even mold events. We can take part in and molding world events. The cosmic consciousness, therefore, is real. And its effect also is real. Thus, the world, which is a product of cosmic consciousness, is also real world. When we say world is real or cosmic consciousness is real, we do not mean to say that it is independent existence. It is real because something greater than cosmic consciousness is real. You understand? When you say cosmic consciousness is real or the world is real, we do not mean to say that it has an independent existence apart from something else. No, it depends. It's a dependent reality. Reality in the sense that it is an expression of a greater reality than the cosmos, than the universe. The transcendent really is, well, the basis of the cosmos. So that you would say, in one sense, that who creates the world? Cosmic consciousness, yes, you can say yes, it creates, but then there is a conscious energy, and conscious energy which is one with being, that creates the world. A term of the transcendent. It is the Sat and the Chit aspect of the Supreme that, is responsible for the world creation. Therefore, conscious being that we speak of thus is more than the universe. Conscious being, not cosmic being minded. It lives independently. And also it lives equally in cosmic harmonies. It lives independent of the cosmos. It lives also within, inside the working of cosmic harmonies. The world that we know lives by that which is beyond the cosmos. But that does not live by the world. You understand? Yes. That is the one thing to be grasped with regard to this. And the great fact of this life manifested on earth is that man can ascend to the transcendental. It is possible for man as an individual to ascend to the transcendent truth. That by which the world lives, but which does not live by the world. Now, this is the whole basis of life divine, that it is possible for the individual to ascend to rise to the transcendent consciousness. There is always a confusion when you take up these questions philosophically and argue out logically, you see, with the mind. But when you take up his expression in poetry, he makes it absolutely simple, you see. This very thing now that we are talking about, in philosophical terms, they will say the transcendent, the universal, the individual. The individual, the universal, the transcendent. Oh, it's a heavy terms, and you feel overcome by what is this transcendent and so on. So in Savitri, he said, the absolute, the perfect, the alone. The absolute, the perfect, the alone. Yes, yeah. Well, has awakened from sleep his own power, his own, force. He puts the word force there. Where she lay in, yes, in sleep, guarding from time the immobile power of his solitude. Now there he puts these three terms only, we concentrate only on the absolute, the perfect, the alone. Alone means only one truth. There are no two truths. And that alone is the absolute, transcendent. Absolute in the sense of, well, beyond all relativities, beyond all words. But he is also perfect. And when you say perfect, well, the whole of the universe is brought into existence already. Because you cannot have alone who is perfect. It makes no sense. One and alone who is perfect means nothing. Perfection means, by the side there is relative perfection or imperfection. Then only perfection is the meaning. So that the absolute, when he becomes perfect or manifests perfection, well, already the universe is there. The cosmos is already there. Only at present it is not perfect as he is perfect. And the problem of man is how to arrive at that perfection, which is already there. Well, if we take up that attitude, then this ascent of man to the transcendent becomes comparatively simple. And because when you speak of something transcendent, at once the mind says, well, when you transcend, you reject what you transcend. You reject what you transcend. Now, this is the general tendency of human mind and intellect, that you say you transcend the cosmos. It means you reject the cosmos. When you get into the transcendent, cosmos has no sense afterwards to you. That is how. So he gives an argument, comparative argument, and says, well, mind. We know mind. And mind transcends life, animal life, insect life, vegetable life, and mind. Now, mind transcends life, but does not reject it. Is it not? Our mind transcends our life, but our mind does not reject life. Well, in the same way, when he is only giving a parallel to make one understand that because there is transcendent, there are philosophies that say that therefore you must reject cosmos. Because that is the only reality. The reality is there above. And this is unreal, therefore to be rejected, to be renounced. Well, there he argues in this chapter whether transcendence should mean rejection. And you see, because the argument is the spirit is pure, luminous, without sinews, without duality, without division. This is the pure self of Advaitins. They will say it is inactive Brahman, it is a transcendent silence, as he puts it in Life Divine, you see. And therefore you are brought face to face with unreality of the world. Because the experience of the transcendent is so powerful that you are overcome. Such a great reality, such a powerful, pure, luminous consciousness without sinews, without duality, and so on. Well, in this perception of this powerful experience coming to man, tends to promote in him the tendency to refuse the world, to refuse life, refuse the cosmos. From this proceeds the refusal of the ascetic, you see. And in India, this has been a very great factor because many people had the contact with the transcendent or some perception of it, and the one result that they advocated was rejection. There is and the shadow of rejection of life has dominated Indian life for many years and made life poor. You see, it is that which made them really feel what was there after all. And if you want perfection or delight or knowledge without shadow of ignorance, well, you have to go to Brahmalok, you will say, or you have to go to Vrindavan, you have to go into Nirvana if you are a Buddhist. You see, get away from this which is working here, which is manifesting here. And these are all beyond the world. And where separate experience is lost in a featureless unity of undefinable existence. In that experience, all separate experience of the individual is completely lost and lost in a featureless unity of an indefinable existence. Now, and subsequently, therefore, these people advocated renunciation as the sole path of knowledge. Tyagena ekena amrutatu manashu, they will say. By only renunciation, well, immortality is attained. Acceptance of physical life would be an act of ignorance. If you accept life, it's an act of ignorance. Cessation from birth, the right use of human birth. Okay. Call of the spirit, recoil from matter. Have you received the call of the spirit? Well, the method to start is recoil from matter. This age in which we live is not in sympathy with this ascetic ideal or refusal and renunciation. It's an age which wants to accept life and is in love with life. So they would say that it was this idea of philosophy was due to failing vital energy. Oh, they lost vitality of life, hold on life, and those they said life isn't real and so on. That's how they would argue. And Shirno says that is true for this age, which has no sympathy for this ideal. But in spite of all that can be said against it, there is a great truth also in this attitude of renunciation. Because the race today, in its intellect and its vital habits, is today subject to insistent animalism. It is very near the animal level. And therefore, the insistence of the ascetic that the spirit is man's deepest and most profoundest essence has a great truth for man. That it is the divinity in man, the transcendent spirit, that is the secret reality of man, and not constant repetition of his animal existence. You see, it is necessary to offset and to balance this tendency of modern times by accepting that there was that truth in the attitude of the ascetic, that the spirit is, after all, the ultimate essence of reality, which means something very, 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 you can say, organic, organically affects the soul of man or the working of man today. The ascetic founded his, his whole outlook on what the Vedanta is called ekameva dvitiyam, one without a second, alone, one without a second. You see, kevalam, they will say, the absolute, unrelated to anything, featureless and free from all relativities and so on. But here Sri Aurobindo says that this is not complete without the imperative second formula, Sarvam Khalu Vidam Brahma. All this is the infinite. All this is the Brahman. One alone is true, but all is that truth. You see? And unless this all is also included in the one even is not complete. You see? Yes. Yes. This attitude of the transcendent as the only real, you see, understands the truth of the divine as spirit. But this exclusive insistence on the reality of the transcendent does not give us the meaning of the divine descending in matter. He has not understood the significance of this descent of the divine into matter. He has only understood the truth in the spirit. As materialism, as we told you last time, served the end of the spirit, so this renunciation or the ascetic's refusal to accept the world or matter also has rendered service to life. Because if you study cultures, you will find that capacity to give up things is always found in anybody who was great. Greatness is achieved by men only when there is a powerful element of, capacity to renounce, capacity to give up things. Otherwise, in life, one does not, attain greatness. So that this element, which if you drive it to the last and reject life, is harmful. But if you admit it as a necessary element, you will see that it renders a great service to life. By pulling out life from the downward gravitational pull of animality, from the pull of desire and ambition and ego, it makes it renounce all those elements of ignorance. You see, there the renunciation, eliminates from human nature all the elements of ignorance, all the elements of imperfection. Then he is able to embody some perfection. That is why he says that no greatness is generally seen without some power of renunciation in one who attains that greatness. Well, how shall we then, he says, solve the problem of the opposition between spirit and matter? This so-called contradiction. Shall we try to arrive at a compromise? Say something of the spirit, something of matter. He says that compromise is a bargain and it is not a correct solution, or reconciliation is what is wanted. An integration and a reconciliation. And this reconciliation can be found by trying to see this cosmic consciousness as a meeting place of matter and spirit. The transcendent beyond cosmos and the matter, which is the product of the inconscient. The inconscient and the superconscient, so to say, seem to meet in cosmic consciousness. So he says, well, if you want to seek a reconciliation between spirit and matter, the meeting place is cosmic consciousness. In the cosmos, in the creation, matter and the spirit have got to meet. So there we find a meeting place. And cosmic consciousness can become an agent between God and life, as manifested here. Both are divine. And this cosmic consciousness also is active Brahman and also passive Brahman. They are not two different things. One denying and the other affirming, a cosmic illusion. When you say cosmic consciousness has behind it a tremendous silence, Said, yes, quite right. The Brahman manifested as the universe has a silence which is eternal, but this silence is, you can say, it is from this silence that the word or expression proceeds. That is how the Bible starts. In the beginning was a word. Now, this word that you say is nothing else but expression. This word came out of the silence. Silence is not against expression. Silence is not zero. Silence is not void. Silence is holding back the content of consciousness from expression. When you are silent, you don't sink into unconsciousness. You are fully conscious. Only you do not allow the content of consciousness to express itself, either in thought or in impulse or in language or in idea. You don't allow it to come out, but you are fully conscious. I mean, silence is consciousness held back from expression, isn't it? Yeah. So here he says that from this infinite silence of the Brahman, the cosmic consciousness, right, the word proceeds, the expression proceeds. That which was hidden in the silence comes out in the word. What comes out in the word is not something outside, it is from within. What was there comes out. It is the eternal passivity that makes everlasting activity of innumerable cosmic systems. There are people who say that silence means rejection of cosmic activity. This is not true. Silence, on the contrary, sustains the cosmic activity, supports the movement of the world. You understand? There are, as some people I told you some time back, say that the transcendence means rejection. There are others who say silence means rejection of cosmos or universe. No, the silence, on the contrary, supports all that is happening. See, it is a silent support which maintains the world. If the Brahman was not fully present at each point of manifestation, things cannot exist. It is not as if it is divided up into systems and planes of consciousness. On each point, on each object that we see, the whole of the infinite is present. The whole of it is present. You see, otherwise, even we would not be able to know the object as an object. We know it because the whole of it is present there in the behind the form. If it was not present behind the form, we would not even know the form. He says, take ordinary human being. You see, when he is silent, he is not devoid of his energies and powers. When he is silent, from that calm and silence, he can proceed to inexhaustible, activity. So that the very experience even of mental consciousness gives us some conception of what can happen on a much larger scale in the infinite. You see, the systems of thought have ended by turning this silence into non-being. They have turned the silence into what they call non-being, asat. Or there are also passages in Upanishad in which they say that being came out of non-being. You see, what is it? Asatva idam sarvam agre asit. Tasmat sadajayata. The non-being was in the beginning, from that the being began. And then they say that this silence is the non-being. In that there can't be any being, and therefore to merge into that non-being, the silence of the non-being, utter, you can say in one sense, annihilation of being, but that is the samambodham. That is the last great achievement of life and human spirit. Is this non-being You can call it nihil if you like, the highest truth. Well, you say that this is the play with words, he says in Life Divine at this point in the chapter. This is playing with words. Because when you say the silence, the Brahman, the transcendent, the materialist or the logician or the rationalist will say, it's all playing with words. You are only doing words. But when you speak of the non-being, also you are playing with words again. Because what is non-being? You have to define what is non-being. It is also a word. And perhaps it's an ideative formation of the mind. Mind has formed an idea and given expression to it. You say being, self, all that is your own subjective ideas. Well, non-being also is similarly a subjective idea. When we say non-being, we do not mean to say that it is non-existence. We want to say that it is something beyond the reach of mind, the thought and idea. If you say that it is a zero, then it is a zero which is all. And it is some infinite which you cannot describe, ineffable infinite. And such an ineffable infinite is like a blank to our mind. It's like a blank to our mind, but it is not non-existence in that sense. Because when you say being came out of non-being, we can ask the question when? When did being come out of non-being? It's an eternal reality that exists. And there, what mind calls non-being and mind calls being have existed from time eternal. So that you see, it is not a particular point of time at which from non-being the being began. You see, so he puts this question, when did this begin? And and if you say that to enter into non-being means negation of all experience, no experience in it, all right, then how can you have that negation of all experience as an explanation for our experience? You see, this is a Ashes bridge in philosophy. You see, so non-being really means freedom from all being, if you like, freedom from cosmic existence. Not denial of the reality of existence, but denial of the limitation of any expression of itself. Understand? Simultaneous awareness of a conscious self-being as a reality and an unknowable beyond as the same reality then becomes realizable to the awakened human soul. When the human soul really gets awakened into inner life, a simultaneous awareness of self being, which is conscious, is real. And an unknowable beyond as the same reality which is here. And this realization then becomes possible to the human individual. When you understand that non-being is not, there is non-existence or absence or experience, but it means freedom from all being. And the denial is the denial of limitation of any expression. That is not limited to that expression. Whatever the expression, that which is expressed is not limited by that expression. That's all that non-being means. It does not mean that it is unreal. The individual self expands and can expand into the silence, and even can go beyond the silence. It can achieve the absolute freedom of non-being and yet retain a hold on existence and the universe. This is the problem and this is the solution. An omnipresent reality is the Brahman. This is now the laying down of foundation of life divine, you see, as a thought. An omnipresent reality is the Brahman. not an omnipresent cause of persistent illusion. If you say self alone exists, then you must also say equally all is a self. A divine self exists, then you say all is the divine self. How was this one, how was this self compelled to manifest or create or express this universe? Was there a compulsion? Was there a necessity? Something happened and the self had to submit unwillingly to something partial within its own self, something which is hostile to its very being, so that ignorance, suffering, pain, all kinds of the suffering to man came out of it. Ignorance resulted. Was there a sort of what you call compulsion, necessity, something which it did not want to do and was compelled to do? Chandu says, no, there is not that compulsion at the basis of this creation. There is something that wills the manifestation. And if you say that something has willed this manifestation, then who else could have willed it except the omnipresent reality? You cannot shove the responsibility of creation from the one to somebody else who is not the one. You see, to Maya and to Avidya, to some principle which is against the one. You see? So he said, put squarely on the shoulders of the one. Well, who is really to be held responsible? If you say that one is the only reality and omnipresent reality is the basis of the cosmos, then in that case, well, the will of manifestation also belongs to that. That it cannot belong to somebody else. Well, then, thus the question, who is responsible for ignorance, for pain, and for suffering? We have to answer the omnipresent reality, the Brahman. This is true monism. You have then to explain, if you can, logically, all the consequences. But this is really, following the truth to its logical conclusion. Yes. Only one Lord, therefore, is admitted in the scheme of life divine. Brahman is a base, it is a continent, it is the material of the world, an omnipresent reality. Non being and the world or universe are two ends, but not negations of itself. Existence, consciousness, and bliss are different states of that one reality. Conscious existence, supreme intelligence, self existent bliss, Satchid Ananda, well, that is the basis. That is the reality which is at work in the cosmos, which is beyond, is in the sense of not being limited by being, is non-being, but is also at the same time, well, support and continent of all being. Well, if you begin to accept these truths with faith in the mind and with this logic that is given, then he says that if you pursue this process and follow yoga, you will find that you're accepting it on faith will be fulfilled or justified by your experience. You have this much logic given to you. He says, now you say, but I don't know, I only have logical understanding. He said, yes, have faith that this is true. And with this faith, if you pursue, she says that you will come to an experience which will justify this faith of yours and turn it into experience. You see. You say that we see only form, we see only, matter. Yes, that is true. You see only form and you see only matter. But they are true and valid only as shape and substance of the manifestation of that which is incorporeal, that which is immaterial. You have to realize in mind or logically understand that form and matter are valid not because they are form and matter, but because they are shapes and substance of manifestation for the incorporeal and the immaterial. It is that which is really what they express. You say we see only life. We don't. We see form, we see matter, we see life. Yes, this is life. Now, why does this life exist? Well, in the infinite, in the omnipresent reality, life exists, he says in Life Divine, in the Brahman, in order to discover Brahman within itself. So, in Brahman, in the infinite, the omnipresent reality, many successive forms of consciousness exist at the same time, coeval. They are all planes coexist at the same time. It is not as if he is moving from one plane to another. All coexist and are coeval. And it is all embracing, containing the individual and the cosmos and related to each other. It is also transcendent, but transcendent not in the sense of being separate. And I give you the argument that mind transcends life, but mind does not abandon life. In the same way, when the infinite omnipresent reality transcends the universe, it is not separated or does not reject or is not necessarily bound to be unrelated to the cosmos. Yes. It is more than, yes. For the mental life and spiritual life, we are not completely given for physical life. So the individual can remain in identification with the cosmos and with the transcendence, and yet retain his hold on his individual mold. The cosmic, the transcendent, when it transcends the universe, embraces the universe also. And this universe, when it is greater than the individual, embraces and includes the individual. You see? Cosmos transcends the individual but includes him. In the same way, that which is beyond the cosmos, embraces the cosmos. Individual is a center of the whole universal consciousness. And liberation of the individual is the keynote of definite divine action. When the individual is liberated, it is due to a definite divine action. And it becomes it is a divine necessity which is fulfilled when the individual is liberated. Because he becomes a point of light. The individual becomes a point of light. You see, it's of self-manifestation in the many. And with that one point of light, the self-manifestation in the many of the Supreme begins to emerge, begins to come into expression. When it takes a one point of light, well, it becomes a self-manifestation of the one, and then it multiplies into other and many. Therefore, the individual, the cosmic, the transcendent, that means the all, can be equated to the divine. You see, man, when he is in this universe, it is the first emergence of self-aware existence. Self-aware existence. And therefore, man has to become master of itself and possess this phenomenal being and allow this supreme to unfold itself in the individual. Then the solution of man's problem begins to, well, come within the practical appearance of man. You will stop there. I'll give you a scheme. If our board is outside, how I could have then you call it transcendent. Cosmic individual. Now this is the all. And this has a silent consciousness, you can say inactive consciousness also, and also an expression or manifestation, or you can say activity. Is that sure? So sure? No, that will belong to this one, you see? It is from here. Now, this is, now this when it transcends extra, supracosmic, this is really speaking supracosmic. But supracosmic means also embracing the cosmos. You see, this includes, if you take all that is the divine. Now, the individual is really a point of expression of the cosmic. It is also a point of expression of the transcendent. It is also a point of manifestation of the divine. So, this one, this is the absolute and the perfect and the alone. You see, absolute, the perfect, and the alone. When you say this, that means the absolute. Absolute is transcendent. You see here, that is. And when you say perfect, that is the all. And when you say alone, he is one. That means you say one, but one that is also the many. You see, in the many, there is only the one. And this realization of the many as the one, or many equal to the one, well, that begins on the basis of the point of light here, individual. So then, in the cosmos, then a number of light points of light begin to act, and then more and more of the light of the transcendence is brought into manifestation in the individual.
Oh, that's exciting for us. Were you leaving that up there for a little while? I'd rather copy this with on the other way of the page.
And omnipresent reality, you take other omnipresent reality. And say it has a part which you call non-being. Non-being means independent of all being. All existence, you can say. Non-being is not non-existence, you see. Now, omnipresent reality, therefore, includes, you see, manifestation. And if you take manifestation, then in this manifestation, you will have to include, you see, truth world. And from the truth world, the present world or cosmos. World or cosmos. And in this cosmos, you will have to include mind, life, and matter. Now that is the process of descent of this divine. You see, this divine is omnipresent reality. Divine is omnipresent reality equated to this. Well, that is a non-being and being, you can say. Being. Being as manifestation, and this manifestation first, when it proceeds from above, this is the process of descent. Now, from matter, there is again an ascent. Matter to life, life to mind, then from mind to, you see, you will come here to cosmic consciousness or universal consciousness, and from there to supermind here, you see. You come to this consciousness in the supermind, in the process of reascent of life, you see, supermind. There you create the true world. This truth world penetrates in that case again into the cosmos. Well, this truth world again comes. You understand?
Yes.
Yeah, the divine's first descent creates worlds.
Yeah.
These are worlds.
Uh-huh.
The cosmos is worlds, and mental world, vital world, material world. And when the evolution begins, then from matter you go to life, from life you go to mind, from mind you go to cosmic consciousness, from cosmic consciousness now to truth consciousness or truth world, supermind. Well, in that case, all the power of this light and the divine, well, is able to come down again into the cosmos, you see.
Yeah.
Light penetrates into mind again, and you see, first descent was to create the worlds, and the second descent is to create in the world, the manifestation of the supreme light. It seems to lose the light first, so to say, by creating a multiplicity, and then in the multiplicity to bring down the totality of perfection and the life. You see, so that is another way of looking at it. This one.
Well, that's the ascent, that's the descent and the ascent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And again, there is the descent. This is the first descent is of the divine, first avatar, as they call it. The incarnation is the world. World is the first incarnation, cosmos. That was the first descent of the divine. If the divine did not descend, world cannot come into existence. You see? Yes. And then, so the first descent. The second descent is when from matter the mind goes on rising and opens to the truth consciousness, then they descend into within. You see, it is like a great power that goes on, creating a sort of a globe. You see, it is like.
I haven't looked at
Why just in terms of cigarettes to do that?
You see, the descent is, you can say, like a global, you see, movement. That is to say, if it,
hard to put on them. Hard to put on the flat surface. Yes. Yes. Broken. Yes.
you see. Now it goes on creating, and then there is infinite individuality in each. You see, descent. And now the total that covers this whole, this is all included, you see,
Yes.
in the one. This is all included. Now, this is, for instance, the first step, the second step, the third step, 7 steps like that. Each is a world and universe. Now, in each one point in the universe again, the light of this, penetrates and expresses itself so that each becomes a conscious center of expressing this one.
That's why the world was made in 7 days. Isn't it? That's why it says it was made in 7 days. 7 steps.
There is a ladder by which it is also represented. One day will show how the 2 ladders work, you see. There is a.
Ladder of difference.
They put it a parabola. You see, the hyperbola is the sign of the infinite in mathematics. You see, the hyperbola represents the mathematical infinite. You take 2 hyperbola.
Well, I got the new one.
How that's different than plus. But hyperbole is open on the ends, aren't you?
You see, now you put this one ladder is of descent. This another ladder is the ladder of ascent. When it descends, at each point it creates a cosmos, creates a universe. You see? So you call it infinite like that, you see? At each point there is infinite. And when it ascends, then in each individual it tends to manifest the infinite. So when it ascends, this step corresponds to this step. Do you see? When this ascends from here below, the human being or the here, then he stands here and contacts this world, universe. You see? When it comes here, well, he contacts this world again. You see, like that. When it arises here, he again is contact with this world, with the divine is created while descending. And in the point of ascent, when he is in the mental consciousness, now he has to rise here, where he really opens out into this higher parabola.
How far up is the mental consciousness, Purani? How many steps?
Here, the third step.
Third step. Three.
Matter, this is life, and this is mind. Now this is, you see, beyond mind is this hyperbola. So when mind breaks into this step, fourth, then it goes into this higher hyperbola. And then all that power of that begins again to descend into this.
Yeah, each time takes it up. I'm sure. You call that fourth step the supramental or the?
Yes, the fourth step is the supramental. The truth consciousness or the supramental consciousness.
Supramental or truth consciousness. Oh yes. You know, Purani, it says in the Bible, I shall be comforted, greater than I shall come, the truth consciousness. In the Bible, it says that too.
Yes.
Yes.
There is also a tradition of the coming of the Prince of Peace and so on.
Yes.
There is a prophecy, and I think Count Cagliostro, there is a prophecy. By, what is his name? A Jewish man, I think.
Zarathustra.
A Jewish man?
Yes, a Jewish
This
tradition.
prophecy? You don't mean Nostradamus.
Nostradamus, yes. There he predicted also some sort of coming of the hostile to the divine, Antichrist, which was Hitler probably. I mean, there is a prediction of the Antichrist. There are so many interpretations that you don't know what exactly Nostradamus means. But that he said about an Antichrist is certain. About the coming of an Antichrist who will be anti-divine, and then there will be a lot of confusion in the world, and then the solution of man's problem will come, or something like that. That is Nostradamus. So there's some prediction like that in every country, every culture, I think, more or less, that is there.